All right, welcome. I'm Vince Polito, and I help people access their core purpose and full potential. And so in this video, I'm going to pick up off of where I was at in this first video on the 3 barriers to positively using the law of attraction. And I'm going to focus specifically around the domain of trauma. Now, I made a post the other day that said there are 2 kinds of people in life: those who have trauma and those who are in denial. In other words, everybody has some form of trauma in their experience. And trauma is not something that's in our past. Trauma is connected to and related to something that did happen in our past, but trauma is something that actually lives on inside of us until we integrate the trauma, until we actually face it, we feel it, and then we can embrace it and we can heal it. And trauma is at the source of all of our worries and our concerns and our frustrations and our fears and our failures and our inability to produce what it is that we want in our life. And a lot of people are talking about using things like the law of attraction or the secret or think and grow rich and working in the domain of thought, which I was talking about in the first video. And just like if we think enough about what it is that we want and we have a clear picture and mental picture, then it's going to happen for us. And that just isn't the case because, as I said, the function of human being and the way that we actually create is that we start out as a spiritual being that has causative power and is aware of the effects that we produce, but then we work through the domain of thought to produce also emotion, which then produces actions, and then we get results from our actions, and then we can give meaning to all of that, and that impacts and affects our ability to create and to use the law of attraction as well. Now, this isn't a video so much about the law of attraction. This is just about, how is it that we can't seem to create what it is that we most want in our lives, right? It's not about, it's not some other video that's going to teach you how to, create a vision board and do some, cool, meditative practice, and then like all your dreams are going to come true and you're going to have everything that you desire. I think those things are important, but they're just small steps that are part of a much bigger staircase that we need to ascend and understand so that we can ascend, and then we can actually start creating the life that we want. So I talked about the 3 barriers, and trauma being the one that I wanted to focus on in this video is where we're going to go. Trauma is something that doesn't happen to you. Trauma is something that's left with you. All right, we go through certain experiences, we have certain traumatic experiences happen, but it's not about what happened to us, it's about what's left in us. It's about what we're still carrying from that painful experience. Now, a trauma, by definition, is something that we experience that we would consider painful or frightening, and we are unable to fulfill, or we choose not to fulfill, the fight-flight response during that moment. So if I'm being attacked and I have this adrenaline rush to want to fight off my attacker or run away, and for some reason, either because I'm overpowered and I can't fight this person and I can't get away from this person, or my mind says, oh, I don't want to fight, I can't be aggressive, like I'm too scared, I don't know what will happen, I shut down that response, and I don't want to run away because what if they chase me, and I can force shut down this fight or flight response in my nervous system. Then trauma is what is left inside of us. We have this resistance that has been created to a natural biological process that was unfulfilled. It's called the arousal cycle being incomplete. And so we can force ourselves into this, what's also called an immobilization response, where we're like frozen. We're not acting on that fight or flight response. But here's the problem. Our biochemical nature, our neurological and biochemical nature is actually, feeding us all these chemicals to respond to this experience. And we're not acting it out, and we're not following through or completing it because we don't want to, or like I said, we're overpowered and we can't. Then what happens is it records in our nervous system a certain way, and we actually experience that immobilization as like a stuckness that stays with us, and the pain and the unconsciousness and whatever else is there is like left inside of us, like we're experiencing that like being a part of our being. And then that causes us then to end up attracting things into our life that are a way for us to want to have this trauma integrated or get complete with, such as like bringing about relationships and different things that we naturally would desire a relationship in our lives. We naturally would desire to have somebody like come to us and love us and nurture us and care for us, but we might be attracting partners that actually just reflect back to us all the trauma that we haven't processed or dealt with inside of our nervous system. And that's typically what happens. And so if we're going to positively use the law of attraction and we're going to really create a life that we love and we understand, and we need to start dealing with these hidden realms, these unconscious realms of our being. It's important to have a view of what you want and what you desire, what's going to make your life seem more fulfilling and alive, and all of that is important. But I know countless people, including myself years ago, when I started trying to create from thinking my way into an amazing future alone, I found that there was something in the way. There was a barrier, and that barrier was trauma. That barrier was this incomplete experience of pain and unconsciousness and troubles that I had gone through all throughout my life, and not dealing with those internally, not even knowing how, not even knowing that I needed to really. I was stuck, right? I was totally stuck. And I thought I had done a lot of work. Now, I have a background of nearly dying from an overdose in 1999, and after living a life of crime and drug dealing, heavy partying, and I got involved with gangs when I was a young kid, and that was all a reaction to my past trauma. Now, as I started to change my life in 1999, I dealt with a lot of the trauma. I dealt with a lot of pain. The past pain started to surface, and I thought I had really gotten complete with everything there was to get complete with, but I got into a relationship and I got married, actually, and inside of that relationship it was so traumatizing for me, and all this stuff got stirred up that I didn't realize was still there for me. And at the time I didn't understand what was going on. Many years later, like over 12 years now later since I've left that relationship, I have identified what was, number one, attracting that partner into my life, why I experienced it the way I did. It was this unintegrated, or this disintegrated aspect of myself, this pain that was still relating to my childhood. And I started to unpack all of this, especially in the last few years, and really see what was there and latent inside of me. And it was infecting every relationship that I was getting into. It affected everything in my life, really. And I was still achieving things. I was still, building my coaching business, helping people like crazy, working in recovery centers to help people struggling with drug and alcohol addiction to break free, and, basically seeing miracles happen before my face. And yet I was still struggling with stuff, and I couldn't understand what was holding me back. It was just more like a feeling that I had in my body, or like there were just certain things, like my relationships. I kept attracting relationships that weren't optimal, and I didn't understand why. And I love so much, and I give so much, and I'm generous, and all these things. But now I'm so clear that the nature of my inner being and this incomplete trauma inside of me was the cause of me attracting all these things that I didn't want. And so no amount of me focusing on, making lists of the ideal relationship or woman that I wanted, and all the qualities and virtues, and the house I wanted, the car I wanted, and all that stuff like that, was really moving me into freedom. I would move towards some of those things, and I was even able to achieve some of those things to a degree, but nothing was quite perfect, and there was a sense of lack and unfulfillment still inside of me that I couldn't understand, and there were still breakdowns and challenges and conflicts in a relationship at times, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And I started to get this sense that I know it's something in me, and I had to start opening up to this inner realm. I had to get a look inside and say, what is it inside of me that's producing all of this? I'm the common denominator here. And so I started really diving deep into this realm of trauma, and starting to understand the inner pains and the inner workings of the human mind. So for I'd say about 12 years now after I left that marriage, I started really looking into it in that marriage, because I couldn't understand what the heck was going on. And little by little, I began the journey of understanding what's going on in the thought realm, in the realm of mind. I began to understand what's going on in emotions, and I began to understand the relationship of thought and emotion to action on a more scientific level, not this more, this spiritual, fluffy, kind of loose, abstract way. I started to understand the science of human behavior. And I started to study all forms of a wide range of psychology and behavioral psychology, and just understanding different tools and techniques for working with people who have wanted to make major changes, from things like neuro-linguistic programming and other practices, including healing arts like Qigong, and martial arts like getting more internal, more aware, Tai Chi and stuff like that. And I started to just explore all these different avenues within my body, my mind, my emotions. I started doing processing within groups. I started forming special groups that were designed for people to start to face these inner realms, because I saw that we don't have enough interior time, especially together in our social circles. We're typically, focus on outer things or talking about past things or future things, but we're not really getting present to what's in us, and we're not sharing that. And I started to see, I had a wonderful training experience back in 2013 that allowed me to see ways that we could get inward more. And I already had a lot of understanding mentally about what was going on in the mind and the emotional level, and somatically, bodily speaking, and how these inner workings were impeding in people's ability to create powerfully in their life, or reducing the life force they have, the throughput of life force, their life potential, the life dynamic, I call it. But I saw like now there was a way to get in to understand these inner workings, and help other people understand the inner workings themselves. And so I formed a small group called the Core Encounter, and we started sitting in circles with about 6 or 7 people, me and about 6 people, and I created a structure with this small team of mine, and we started to just work on the inside stuff consciously, intentionally, and we began to use these practices and create tools and practices and methods for getting deeper awareness levels than we ever had before of what's going on inside. So we started to see deep within. We started to see back into our childhood. We started to be able to see into our unconscious regions of the mind, and we began to start to bring this to the surface, these traumatic events that we've experienced, and we started to get a sense of completion around them. And when I say completion, I mean like we go through a traumatic event, and it's like it's painful, it's scary, it hurts. We experience abuse, either physically, sexually, or emotionally, or psychologically. And we're, there's pain, and we record that pain, and it shapes our worldview. It shapes our viewpoint of ourselves, right? We can start to think of ourselves as unworthy. Like I've worked with so many girls that have been molested, and like the shame and this even my own mother. I processed my own mother's first molestation experience when she was 12. And walked her through that step by step to help her get some completion around that. And it's just as women have this sense of shame that comes upon them, like as if they did something wrong, or that they're not good enough now, or that they're dirty, or all kinds of interpretations are created, but it seems to happen so automatically and so quickly. These identifications that are made in these painful moments become serious impedance to creating what it is that we really would want, that would be really fulfilling. These deeply held beliefs, like deep-seated, deeply rooted beliefs that something's wrong with me, or something's wrong with life, or I can't trust men, or I can't trust women, I can't trust people, I'll never be able to get a good job, or I can't drive again because of the car accident I had. Like these identifications that are formed about who I am and how life works and how people are become deeply embedded within us, and then we kind of move on from the painful incident where those identifications are formed, but those identifications still live on inside of us, and they are literally like in our frequency of being, and they cause us to bring into our field of experience something that affirms that belief that we have formed. And beliefs are way more than just oriented in the realm of thought. A belief is not just a thought. A belief has a tremendous amount of emotion, and there's a tremendous amount of unconsciousness associated to our beliefs. Our beliefs are typically not conscious. The things that we think we believe, like our political, bent, whether we're left or right or Republican, Democrat, or whatever we say we are, that we have a belief of this, that, where we believe in science, or we believe in spirituality, or believe in both, or, those conscious beliefs, that's a different kind of belief. I'm talking about the kind of beliefs that are deeply anchored into the subconscious, into the psyche, behind the view of our conscious and analytical mind. These beliefs are what are running the show. This is like the operating system of our human being, and I say our human being because I consider us to be more than just human being. We're human being, but we are a spiritual being, which is a being capable of causing effects in the physical universe and being aware of them, right? So I distinguished what the spiritual being is. But the body, the human being, and the emotional part of us and the thought realm part of us, that functioning part of us, it operates by certain laws. And when these identifications are made around these traumatic incidents, we carry these we'll say like these trauma pockets, right, of belief that are self-negating, self-deprecating, self-sabotaging. They literally work against us because something in life was so overpowering and we just succumb to it. And then our belief, it's automatically created. We just record this, I failed to survive this situation effectively or powerfully. I barely made it through. I failed to overcome the situation. I failed to defeat the situation. This person who hurt me was bigger than me and more powerful than me, therefore I'm small. And some part of us believes that, and we might go on and we start to live our life, but this deeper part of us believes that we're not enough, that we're not strong enough, we'll never be strong enough, that we're broken, that the world is dangerous. And these viewpoints form inside of us, but they're subconscious. And our amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain, is actually recording all of this stuff, and it's beyond conscious view, right? The amygdala receives information through the senses, and it bypasses the information, that it just bypasses our conscious awareness, right? The amygdala is there so that we can react quickly to real threats in life. But when the amygdala is programmed, we'll say, with events like traumatic experiences, like being abused, having a relationship that's just, terrorizing, and, our amygdala starts to record things, and it doesn't have the same intelligence that we do when our whole brain is online, where we can distinguish and differentiate one woman from another woman, or one man from another man, or one voice tone from another voice tone. It collapses everything, and like everything seems like everything else if it's similar just enough, right? It's very, there's a lot of sameness in its perspective. And it's there to help us survive. It's not there to cause us harm, but it can cause us harm when it's recording these experiences, and then it's making these assumptions that all men are dangerous, all women are abusive, or gonna cheat on me, or whatever, depending on whatever happened to us. We have these things that form, and our brain just records all that in our nervous system, in our body even, and it gets all up inside of us, and it plays out in our body as much as anything else. In fact, we begin to dissociate from our body because we experience this pain in our body, in our emotions. And then what we start to do is we start to eject from that region of our experience. And so we dissociate from this traumatic injury, and we no longer have access to it. So we kind of just compartmentalize the pain and painful experience because we don't want anything to do with it. But here's what the problem is with that. It doesn't go anywhere. Right? It hasn't disappeared. It's still an aspect of our consciousness, and it's still an aspect of our memory. Even though it's unconscious memory, it still has power to be what we call triggered, right? And replay the sensations, the feelings, the fears, the thought patterns even, and that stuff can go off, and we can be in a situation that's actually no real threat at all, but it's just similar enough, and it will just cause all of that traumatic injury and the response therein to play out in a certain way, but it never gets complete. And so when this stuff is incomplete, it becomes like a magnet for completion. It's seeking, it's begging to get back into alignment. We are begging to rediscover our power where we felt that we lost it, right? And so we're looking to figure out what did we miss there, and there's ways to do that, but we have to access the traumatic injury. We have to go in and discover, and some people call this shadow work. We need to look inside of the shadow realm, this dark space, and it's not anything to be judged. It's nothing to be rejected or denied, really, although that's what we've already done. And it's not something to be shamed for, but we already have shamed ourselves for it, or someone shamed us, and we're hiding that shame now that we've believed to be real, and we're just compartmentalizing all that stuff, but it's just living there, and that is the source of all these problems and attracting things that we don't really want, that we say we don't want, but we keep finding ourselves repeating this pattern. It's like over and over. We self-sabotage. We get something good and then we destroy it. Why? Because the traumatic recording is still playing out and saying, yeah, but you know how it's going to end. It's going to go bad because you were flying high at one time in your life, and then this painful thing happened, and now it's not you're not going to experience this joy anymore. So you expect failure in a sense when the trauma is unintegrated. And so what we need to do to put an end to this and eliminate this barrier so we can actually positively use the law of attraction in our life. We can start thinking about what we really want and feeling it and bringing it into our space instead of a bunch of other stuff that we seem to not want. First, we got to get that everything that is in our space right now is something that we may not want at a conscious level, but deep down we do want that. We need it. We want it and we need it because we want to be able to figure out what the lesson is. Like, what is the lesson to discover here? Even if we're in like terribly abusive relationships, there's some reason we got into that. Now, I'm not saying that we want to be in an abusive relationship. No, I'm not saying that we consciously want that or we should ever want that. Or if that we're in one, that we should stay in it because there's something wrong with us to work out. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is if we're in that situation, there's something in us that brought us that situation. There's something in us that even allowed that. And there's something in us keeping us from walking away from it. If that's what the healthy thing is to do, like what is that? What there is to do is start to access this realm. And there are many ways to do it. And we need to really go through the body first. This is not something that can just be talked out with our words, although certain dialogues need to happen. And sometimes that's a good first start, is to start dialoguing about what could have been the case or what could be there. But then we need to move deeper. We need to move into the emotional and the bodily realm, and we need to start to experience the feelings and sensations connected to these traumatic incidents, and we need to give them the full view of our attention. But here's the thing, it's not something that we can do on our own because it's so painful and so hidden, and our own attention, even when we're really wanting it, is like automatically shut out from it because that's like the habit that we've formed over time. We've avoided it, we compartmentalize it, and now we've created this condition where I don't want to go in it. So we usually need at least one other person, a minimum, to support us in entering these spaces. Ideally, we have multiple people because there's a sense of tribal connection and safety. Our nervous system knows, like, when it's the right people, it's the right context, the right situation. We feel supported by the people that are with us. We have the ability to go deeper within. We know that this thing that we've been carrying that's so heavy, it was too heavy for us to begin with is why, right? Trauma has been, when we go through a traumatic experience, it's always too heavy for us to handle in the first place. At least we believe it is, or it actually is, right? If we're overpowered by physical dominance and we're just beat down like physically, and we or raped or molested, and we can't fight back, and whatever. We're literally physically overpowered, or we're emotionally overpowered. We don't know how to deal with that energy that's coming at us and screaming, yelling at us, or whatever, psychologically, gaslighting us. Our parents can be demeaning us hardcore and, abusing us verbally, or something like that can happen. We're overpowered, right? We're overpowered. We never had the power. It's recorded in our nervous system that we didn't have the power. It's recorded in our nervous system that we were not strong enough. We were not capable enough. And so that's how it is for us. Right? And so it's not like we're going to go back and we're going to change that alone, because it's recorded that we couldn't in the first place. So that's why we need support. We need at least another human being, ideally a group of human beings that can be with us to navigate these territories and actually I don't say retell the story, so to speak, because the story that was recorded was, I'm not enough, I'm not powerful enough, not strong enough. But we can retell the story, not just at a cognitive level. We got to do this emotionally and somatically, or in the bodily region. We got to get into the whole body, and we need to actually create a sense of safety internally where not just anywhere, we need to go exactly to where there is this lack of safety, this sense of something's wrong, and I'm not strong enough, and I'm not powerful enough, and I'm not going to be able to do this, and I'm helpless, and it's hopeless. And we need to actually confront that whole space, neurologically, biochemically, physiologically. We need to get into the whole region of our being where this recording is, and we need to be able to now bring in the safety and the support that others can provide us with, and we can actually start to regulate that part of our nervous system. And this is called co-regulation. So in trauma informed conversations, we talk a lot about self-regulation, our ability to regulate our own nervous system's responses and get them, back into homeostasis, right? We have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system excites us and gives us that adrenaline rush when we need it. And, we have a lot of energy available when there's threats or something's going on, and that's important to have that. But then the parasympathetic nervous system is the part that starts to relax us and calm us down. And so when these things are working normally, there's a natural energizing to ourselves, and we can follow through with that cycle, even if it's in a fight situation and we got to fight and whatever. And if we follow through all of that and we're able to survive, we can walk away and we can actually discharge all that energy, and there's no traumatic trace left, right? And we can then relax and we're good. We can move on with our lives. But when we go through a traumatic event that, by nature of being a traumatic event, we didn't get to fulfill that fight or flight response completely, we shut it down, or it was not, we were overpowered by it, then it's something is left in us. And that which is left in us, that's that incompletion, that's going to be seeking completion. And that's going to cause us to have things come into our lives and attract things in our lives that we say we don't want, but we keep finding ourselves attracting them. Now, I know a lot of people have this experience. I'm attracting something I don't want, but I keep doing it. Right? And it's like, I say I don't want it. I'm like, no, next relationship's going to be even better. You know what I mean? The next job is going to be even better. It's like, my boss is the same. My girlfriend is the same. My boyfriend is the same. Whatever it is, right? And we just keep getting the same thing over and over again in a different package. Well, that's because there's this incompletion inside. So we got to go within. We got to access this inner territory. We need other people to support us. We need to co-regulate, like I was saying. And we need to learn how to train our nervous system to feel safe in this particular area where it didn't feel safe. That means we have to confront this thing that's been so dark and scary and painful, or maybe something we're so ashamed of that we don't want anyone to know, because if anybody found out about this thing that I'm carrying inside of me, they would certainly reject me. It's like we know this as if it's the truth, and it's not true. It's just a belief. And it's so hard sometimes to access this. And then when we don't have support, it's even harder. And so when we have the right support, when we have the right setting, the right context, the right people, the right conditions, we can relax and start to open up these spaces, and we can finally get completion. We can shed the tears that maybe we didn't get to shed. We can scream the scream that maybe we didn't get to scream, right? We can shout out the anger or the rage that we never got to express, that's just still bottled up inside, and we can complete the cycle. We can complete the energy. We can express the energy and get our power back. And what that does is creates a huge clearing inside of us, where trauma is not now this barrier to attracting things in our lives that would be good and helpful and useful, and is actually causing us to attract things that seem to harm us and hurt us. But now there's this newfound sense of purpose and meaning, like beautiful significance for my pain. My pain becomes something that's purposeful. My pain becomes something that, like, I understand and like I've learned from, and like there's a relief that there's a new sense of flow and ease, and this rhythm of life, this pulsing of life that can start to move within us. Because if we feel even a little bit dead, I guarantee there's some trauma inside us, right? If we're like kind of bored or like monotonous, like, we're not too excited about life, not too enthusiastic or passionate about life, there can be a tremendous amount of trauma. Now, there's, on the flip side of that, I just want to be clean and clear here in my communication, that we could be super enthusiastic and excited about life, but that doesn't mean that we don't have trauma. We can be the most positive people and have tremendous amounts of trauma. In fact, our positivity is a strategy for avoiding the pain that we're carrying inside of ourselves. So that can happen too. But and so we have to just start to check ourselves and be honest. Now, the reason this is so difficult for people, and unless you have support doing this, is because most of us have already fooled ourselves and caused ourselves to believe that the strategies that we're using to survive are the way to live out life. But they're reactions and responses to painful events and incidents that happen at a particular time. And it isn't the way that all of life is. It was the way that it was maybe at home, right? Like in my situation, growing up with an abusive stepfather who I watched, abuse my mom severely, brutally even. And it hurt me to witness that and to be part of that and to feel helpless around that time and time again. And I recorded this sense of helplessness. And of course I would. I was 10 years old, 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old. I mean, I was young, I was small, what am I going to do at that age? Like, I just knew things weren't right, but I didn't know what to do. And I formed all these strategies to survive that situation, right? Like appeasing my stepdad or being friendly to him so that he wouldn't kill my mom. You know what I mean? I was embarrassed, about my mom having black eyes and bruises on her body and, her bloody lips. And, going out in public like that. It was weird, and it was like I didn't want to say anything because my mom was trying to hide it because she didn't want people to know. She didn't want, she's trying to protect their relationship, and and it's just like all this weird stuff that I'm growing up under. And so I formed a lot of weird conclusions about myself, about life, about relationships. I mean, and it's impacted my whole life, right? And I've seen it. And it's only when I started to go deep within and started to face myself at the subconscious level and get in touch with these wounds inside, this inner wounding and the core wounding, really like right at the center of my being, and start to really penetrate those regions and release the hurts, and to feel that freedom that comes rushing in, and that aliveness when it's finally like I can move that energy out of my system. It's the good news is we're not stuck, not really. Like we can get support, we can get help, and we can break through. And so I'm gonna wrap up this video by saying, look, if this is you, if you resonate with any of this information and you're looking for a way to deal with this, this unconscious stuff, the traumatic incidents and the pains and the hurts, then we have a wonderful opportunity for you inside of a group called the Core Encounter. And the Core Encounter is where we're getting together a small group of people, and we're talking about this. We're dealing with this. We're confronting this. But we're first creating a sense of self-love and a sense of safety and a sense of mutual love and respect amongst the members of the group. And when that bond is formed and that love is created and that connection and the compassion is present, then there's a sense of like, okay, I can do this. I'm not on my own. This is a team effort, man. This does not happen by ourselves. This happens with the right group of people, man. Just like a good military operation is not going to happen by one guy. It's a team behind this whole thing to take out the enemy. And this thing inside of us that's been attacking us, that's been causing us to have a life that we don't want, like it's a strong force, man. It's not something to be taken lightly. It's not even something to try and handle on our own. It's something that we need to be vulnerable enough to say, like, we need help. Military personnel are badasses. They're tough people, right? They're so like trained, but they're not stupid. They know that if they're confronting an enemy that's significant and can cause damage, that they need to team up, right? And they form teams and teamwork to attack and take out this enemy, right? And now, in our case, we're not going in to attack anything. We're going in to actually bring love to something, but it can be so frightening to do on our own. We need a team of loving and empowered individuals who are there for us to support us through that facing and feeling and embracing, so that we can heal what it is inside of us that has not been given our attention ever since the time that we had happened to us, whatever happened to us. And so that's what we're doing inside of the Core Encounter. And there'll be a link in the description below if you're interested in learning more about that. And if you also are interested in doing this kind of work and serving other people, I have a program called the Leadership, Influence, and Team Training Program, where you can actually partner with me and other coaches and healers and leaders who are in this this game of transformation and providing people an opportunity to access their shadows and to integrate the shadow and to start embracing and loving themselves passionately. I mean, the game is really all about restoring a sense of well-being and self-love and self-acceptance, which is a lot of people are talking about that. And it's great to talk about it. It starts the conversation going, and people need to have that conversation, start getting present to it. But the work is way more than talking. The work is about feeling. The work is about embodying it and getting it into our whole being. And that's just not something we're going to do by just, having a conversation with someone, watching a video, reading a book. It just doesn't happen to the full depths. It happens through interpersonal relationships. And so that's why I've set up these groups and these programs that I have with a group of people or teams of people that are there to support you through the development of yourself by clearing the foundations, right? Integrating the pains, the hurts, and the breakdowns that have occurred in your life that have been unresolved. And I got into this because I'm a coach. I've been coaching, but when it comes to high performance coaching, I found out that you can give people a lot of good strategy, and you can give people a lot of clear direction, basically, on where they need to go, what they need to do, but oftentimes those people won't do it. Stuff gets in their way. What's getting in their way? It's not external stuff. It's their own internal makeup is getting in the way. So this inner game dimension needs to be handled, and it needs to be trained, and it needs to be mastered and learned. And so that's all this part here, the function of human being. And there's ways about going, ways of going about it, I should say, in making sure that we are, aligning all of these in a proper sequence and understanding each realm, how they integrate with one another, and how to, actually utilize them consciously and intentionally to produce what it is that we want in our lives. But we also got to deal with the barriers that are in the way, right? So you can know all this, but if you're not dealing with these then you're stuck, right? You can master all of this consciously in your mind and understand it in that sense, right? You might master it linguistically and conversationally, but actually in living out your life, if these things aren't handled, these other barriers, particularly the trauma barrier, which is the one that's most embedded and hidden from our view, then it's going to get in the way of all this, because trauma is affecting the way that we think, it's affecting the way that we feel, the emotions that we have, the sensations and feelings in our bodies as well, these weird sensations and feelings beyond just our emotions, but it also affects our behaviors. It's affecting our results. It's affecting the way that we give meaning to things in our life, which that affects everything in our life, what things mean to us, how we associate things to either pleasure or pain, or life or death. That's what meaning is. Like we give things meaning. I like this thing, I don't like this thing, right? And those associations can be completely governed by our traumatic incidents, right? And it controls our whole view of the world, of ourselves and others. And if that's not completed and handled, and we restore ourselves to a sense of self-love and self-value, right? Because our traumatic experiences leave us with a sense of shame automatically, almost every time. Shame is there. And I know because I've done a lot of work with people over the years, including myself. So I'm in this realm and I take people through these realms, and we just find it. There's always like some sense of shame, as well as anger and, grief and, just embarrassment. There's these different feelings and emotions that are there, and there's these bodily sensations, and people are just so disconnected and disintegrated. And so basically my mission is to help bring people back together, to bring people back to wholeness. So I help people get whole, right? Get back to wholeness. We're whole fundamentally, essentially, innately, but our human functions can get out of alignment, and we don't see or feel or experience that wholeness in ourselves or in our relationships or in our lives. But we can actually get so we can actually, I had to pause for a little bit, but I'm just going to wrap this video up. Basically, we can just say that if you want to do this work, okay, and you're interested in getting connected to a group of people that will love you and care for you and see you through, then check out the links below in the description. Get connected with me and my people, my team, my programs, and we'll give you an opportunity to start to really just break through the barriers, to start to really just go deep within and start to really finally deal with that stuff that maybe has been getting in your way for years and years and years. You know what? A few weeks of your time can create tremendous progress for you. And it's not going to complete everything. It's a lifelong journey to integrate our trauma and to discover how we function and to create the life of our dreams. Like, there's always a new level no matter where we are. But we can accelerate the process of healing and integration when we deal with these things directly in the right environment, the right context. And that's what we're here to provide. So again, I'm Vince Polito. I'm here to, help you access your core potential, your full potential, your core purpose, your full purpose. And I believe that at our core, there is an innate purpose, there's innate potential, there's innate power that we can just tap into. It's not like we have to create it out of anything. It's already there. We need to just uncover what has covered it up. And that's the work that I do. And I would love to see you get that release and just experience the fountain of life in you and through you, causing you to create the life that truly fulfills you. And so I thank you. I look forward to sharing in the next video with you. Please leave your comments below. Ask any questions that you have. I'll be reading those and just looking, to understand what there is. I'll be creating videos based on your needs and wants and, your requests. So make those requests there. If you have questions about anything, please feel free to do the asking in the comments. Now, go back and watch the first video if you haven't seen that video. Check it out. I promise you it's going to bless you, and then you'll understand this video even more. So this is a really good thing to understand. I explained that pretty clearly in that first video. So check it out. I'll link the description. Link it in the description, as I said. So thanks again. I enjoy you. Bless you. Go forth. Be prosperous. Be energized. Be alive in your life in every area that you can dream of. All right. I appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.